Over the course of the centuries, and shortly after the Industrial Revolution, we humans became incredibly reliant on fossil fuels and other CO2-rich fuels, which in return accelerated the destruction of our atmosphere and the rise of climate change. Today, as we speak, there are ongoing efforts to reduce the environmental footprint of many urban settlements around the world, out of which San Francisco has been labeled the greenest city in North America. Hello everyone, this is Moise here from the Youth Speakers. Joining me today is Ms. Brukman, the Senior Green Building Coordinator at the San Francisco Department of the Environment, where she focuses on education, outreach, and policies to help shape the design, construction, and operations for San Francisco's urban makeup. Ms. Brukman is also the chair for the Municipal Green Building Task Force. Ms. Brukman, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Ms. Brukman, San Francisco is one of the greenest cities in the United States and very high up there when it comes to the global landscape as of 2022. And without a doubt, that's fairly a great achievement. And so what is that thing that distinguishes San Francisco from the rest of the world's cities? And what efforts has San Francisco put in to achieve that title of being one of the greenest cities in the world? And maybe if you can slightly touch on sustainability as well.
Absolutely. This is a great question, and I appreciate it. And it might not be surprising to hear that it really comes down to people. Cities are dynamic and complex, and if you think about it, they have a lot of resources, but they're also responsible or accountable for many more things that we probably don't often even think about. In San Francisco, the ecological impacts are being considered as part of the solutions to the way that the city is run, and all the little pieces that make up our governance structures and our administration. And I think this is a big reason for the city being recognized as one of the greenest in the world. People who live and work in San Francisco really do prioritize green outcomes, and they have for many decades. This isn't something new. This helps our city with funding or projects or filters for decision making. And pretty much every department has staff that focus on possibilities for ecological benefits through the lens of that agency's work. Like, for example, the San Francisco Public Library isn't just thinking about how to get books to people or access to computers, but they're thinking about the materials they use to create branch buildings, the energy and water they consume, the equipment that can keep the indoor air and environment clean and healthy, ways that the outside of the building might provide habitat for pollinators, and so much more. The department where I work, it's the Department of the Environment, we have more than 100 dedicated staff. And our department was established back in 1996 because of a voter initiative. At the beginning, there were just a few people working at the department, but now we have experts who are passionate about a lot of different things. We have programs that create education and policy about climate, renewable energy, energy efficiency, clean air transportation, zero waste, toxics reduction, urban forestry, green building. I could go on. But I'm part of the green building program, though I work closely with my colleagues in other program areas because how we build is influenced by some of these other issues. I was curious, are you familiar with the precautionary principle? The precautionary principle basically means better safe than sorry. So if someone proposes an action, they first have to make sure that it's safe, instead of jumping right in and seeing what negative things can happen that they then need to mitigate. And the precautionary principle is the very first chapter of San Francisco's Environment Code. So it was adopted in 2003. And I think this is another reason for our city's success. We've had requirements for green building for a couple of decades. It started with zero waste as well as energy and water use. So looking for ways to be efficient, use clean renewable energy, treat and reuse water, recover as much material as we could through recycling and composting. And then a few years later, the city adopted certification programs like LEED and Build It Green, as well as created additional policies to make sure that our new buildings and our renovated buildings and the way that we operate our buildings, that they're designed and built to minimize their negative environmental impacts more broadly too. And we continue to advance our requirements so that we're always raising the floor. We're focusing a lot now on operations of our existing buildings to make sure that they can also help with our climate action goals. So one example is that you may have heard about the need to decarbonize building operations. And this means we need to stop using natural gas, which contains methane and has a huge global warming potential. Instead, we want to use carbon neutral and renewable energy sources. San Francisco passed laws over the last couple of years to ban natural gas from new construction. And now we're looking at policy to remove natural gas using equipment from our existing buildings. We're also looking at policy to eliminate the negative impacts of construction and how we make building materials. The carbon associated with each part of a product life cycle, and that's like the extraction of raw materials, the manufacturing, the transportation, its end of life. That's called embodied carbon. So we're also trying to balance that part of the city's urban fabric too.
Ms. Brukman, I think it's incredibly interesting the way the world is moving forward towards becoming more green. I guess we could say, especially after a major wake-up call from the recent climate change report. Ms. Brukman, I thank you for your time speaking with me today and hope that all of us listening here today learned something new.